There are few things quite as satisfying as popping a Ratman's head like a grape with a hammer, or cutting that head clean off with a sword, or possibly blasting it away with a shotgun, or just burning the whole thing to a crisp. The truth is, just about every one of the multitude of ways Warhammer Vermintide 2 gives you and your co-op team to kill your enemies is punchy, powerful, and a whole lot of fun.
Kill more, Garrickson! Kill more! Gutter runners!
The best things about this Left 4 Dead style action game are the sights and sounds of its brutal combat. When you connect with a mace or a sword, the feedback is forceful enough that you can practically feel it in your bones. Blunt weapons send bodies flying, while bladed options slice off heads. The dozens of weapons available are varied and balanced enough that which you choose feels like a matter of preference, not being tempted by raw power. That said, the combat tactics in Vermintide 2 aren't quite as deep as its weapon pool. Most fights involve circling around hordes of Skaven or zombie-like chaos soldiers while swinging at the head and avoiding or blocking attacks. Special enemies will shake things up by grabbing you or throwing out gas and fire, and the higher difficulty levels do require tight, coordinated teamwork to survive. But it's still simple hack-and-slash fun at its core, and that's perfectly okay as long as you aren't expecting the strategic nuance of something like chivalry medieval warfare. Vermintide 2's ranged options are also interesting and varied, though I still prefer the feel of a broadsword to a bow. There are exciting options like the repeater pistol, as well as Sienna the fire mage, who replaces ammo entirely with a clever and challenging overheating mechanic. It makes her stand out in the roster and comes with some surprising weapon options, like rapid-fire fireballs or a freaking laser beam. There are 5 characters to choose from, each with 3 versions called careers that have a unique skill tree and a set of abilities built for a certain playstyle. For instance, Marcus Gruber's default mercenary career encourages wide melee swings, while his huntsman career that unlocks at level 7 focuses on ranged combat. I most enjoyed the swinging flail of witch hunter Victor Saltspire because of his specialization in taking down big enemies fast. The good news is that there are 0 microtransactions in Vermintide 2. However, the big ugly catch that somewhat undermines this interesting and adaptable system is how you unlock and upgrade your equipment. Randomized loot boxes. It's not completely disruptive like in games such as Star Wars Battlefront 2, but I still find this kind of progression extremely unsatisfying because you don't have much control over which rewards you're actually working toward. And in this case, the loot usually isn't that interesting. It's thrilling to find a brand new type of weapon, but it's boring to earn and open a high-level chest only to find that same weapon again, this time with a power level of 88 instead of 85. Apart from your melee and ranged weapon, the other 3 types of equipment are all just generic vehicles for that power level, the vast majority of which I instantly scrapped for materials. The saving grace is that Vermintide 2 has a pretty robust crafting system to help combat its inherent randomness. But I quickly reached a point where pretty much everything I opened in a loot box was either a boring power bump or worthless junk. Thankfully, the action itself is so much fun that the dull progression system didn't suck the joy out of it. One thing that does impress me every time I play is Vermintide 2's downright gorgeous selection of locations, which are surprisingly bright and beautiful. Its 13 different missions are all well laid out, with straightforward walking sections being broken up nicely by special obstacles like wide wheat fields that obscure enemies or small objectives to complete, and each one ends with its own exciting finale.
Get behind me!
Warhammer Vermintide 2 is a beautifully dark game, and I'm in love with its hard-hitting, meaty melee weapons. Most of the loot you earn for your efforts is a letdown, but thankfully you don't need to pay much attention to it to simply enjoy the hack-and-slash Left 4 Dead-inspired co-op fun of bashing hordes of rats and zombies to a pulp. For more on Vermintide 2, check out 8 minutes of gameplay or our Kerillian character spotlight. And for everything else, keep it right here on IGN.